Welcome back to the Done Deal Show with Dean Jones. Loads to talk about today. Man United new bid for Onana. What are they doing about their striker position? We're taking a look at Arsenal that have essentially completed 3 deals. What will they be doing next in the window with the likes of Lavia and others linked to their club? Chelsea, when will they start signing players, big players that is for their team? Updates on Caicedo, Vlahovic and more to come. But Dean, before we start, how are you, my friend? How are you getting on? You good? You well?
I'm good, mate. I'm very good. It does feel like the transfer window is a bit more back to normal now. Like I feel like we're at a rate that is probably about usual for this time of year. The way we got off to it was obviously explosive, and there was too much going on at times to keep up with. There was so much to keep up with. You couldn't check out any new stuff. I was speaking to Give Me Sport, and I was like, this is all great. Like, I'm sure your hits are great right now because there's so many storylines, but finding time to actually text people or call people about new stuff, there's this window about this small, because I'm not Fabrizio Romano. I'm not doing 22-hour days here. I've got a family to also talk to at times. But it has settled a bit now, and we can actually make some headway with other stories which aren't quite so prominent all the time now that the likes of the Rice deal and the Mount one are sorted out.
Yeah, I bet it's been. I mean, Arsenal are the ones dominating the majority of that airtime. Mount, as well, as you pointed out as well. So there was so many deals to kind of delve into. We will touch on Arsenal a little bit later, but I wanted to pick your ear about a situation with Man United. The Italian press have had a bit of stick this year, but it seems like they were right about this Onana situation. One bid has gone in. I know people keep saying it's verbal, but you know me, verbal, unverbal, text messages, WhatsApp, emails, it's all a bid. The second bid is reportedly imminent from Man United, around 52 million euros. But what is your understanding of the situation and their pursuit of a new goalkeeper?
Yeah, so they were right on this one. I mean, they were bang on it in Italy in terms of Onana, and United spent the weekend basically deliberating over exactly what their tactics would be around the pursuit. They didn't want to go guns blazing at the weekend after the initial conversations that were had on Friday. They decided to sit back on it, and they were able to do that. Obviously, De Gea's wedding, they were very respectful of, and they didn't want to overshadow that or cause any issues really that were unnecessary in that moment. And obviously, De Gea still needs some clarification on all this too, because he's got a career that he wants to continue with. But basically, my understanding of it from what happened at the weekend was that United kind of set the bar at £45 million as to the limit that they wanted to go on, ideally, for Onana. Now, we're basically going to get to that point. I mean, 52 million euros, if that includes bonus, then that'll be about the figure that United were happy with all along. So that's happy days. And the understanding I have is that this deal is likely to proceed, and Man United will end up signing Andre Onana as a new goalkeeper for next season. I mean, what an unbelievable moment that will be for Man United. This isn't the big signing that we're expecting. In fact, it's at completely the wrong end of the field. We were told a priority absolutely is the man that scores the goals for next season, not the guy that stops them. We're expecting De Gea to get that one more season, but Onana changes everything. You know, I would definitely single this out as a defining transfer in the way that Man United play next season. To have Mason Mount already through the door, to have Onana coming in, it would set their patterns of play off so much better than they have been previously. Obviously, Casemiro going to be so important to them next season going forward too. And then it'll all come down really to who can they get in as that number 9. But for now, Onana looks like it's going to happen as it stands right now. United confident that they can seal this transfer, and for a very reasonable fee. And if you look at here, you're basically getting Onana and Mason Mount for £100 million. That's not too bad business.
It isn't. And I get what you're saying around it wasn't the area of the pitch people expected. But for a lot of Man United fans, signing a goalkeeper with the ability, both as a shot stopper, commanding his area, and of course his ability on the ball, we felt that it was absolutely paramount. And the back end of the season, the mistakes from De Gea, the inability to play out from the back, the amount of times we would succumb to being pressed, the amount of times he would try and, not even long balls, but he'd try and do a 30-yard, 35-yard pass into the middle to a player in space and just not find him. it was damaging us. And then everybody saw what Onana did in that Champions League final. And again, if we had a goalie that was able to pass like that in the FA Cup final, it could have been a very, very different game in my
Yeah.
in my view. And if we could now add some more quality to this team as well. And I've been saying it for a while. I agree with you. I think this deal is seismic for Man United. I think it will be transformative in terms of how we play. And you look at most of the teams up near the top of the table or that have challenged for big honours in recent years, Liverpool, City, Arsenal have now got to that point. They all have goalkeepers who are very good with their feet. Very, very good. And the best teams in the world, they have astoundingly good goalkeepers. You probably argue maybe Real Madrid with Courtois. He probably isn't in that echelon of amazing with his feet. But even he's vastly superior to that of David De Gea. So, yes, a massive one for us. And I agree with you. I also feel like when you've got the press in Italy, the press in England, the press all across Europe, pretty much printing the same stories, and they're not just reiterating and quoting each other, you kind of have a feeling a deal is going to be done because everybody's sort of singing off the same hymn sheet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to the Kim story that I know, like, was a lot was written about it abroad, but there were never really that positive signs from it at our end of things. I was always a little bit careful at not knocking it all down because it was being written about so heavily and actively. So I was cautious all along, Kim, but knowing that United did have interest, you obviously had to do that. But this Onana one has been different. It's also come about pretty quickly, really. If you think about the time frame we're looking at here, from De Gea basically being told that he wasn't going to be staying and released from his contract to the point we're at now, it's basically a week where they've gone from making the decision on De Gea, he's going, Onana talks, what can we do? Deciphering whether the player wanted to join Man United. He absolutely does want to join Man United. That's been absolutely critical in this, getting the player's head up that he was wanted to become Man United's number one. That was massive to them. Not only does he fit Ten Hag's philosophy, but he actually wants to be Man United's number one. That is a big moment going forward for United. And obviously in time for the pre-season as well, to get him actually through the door would be massive. At the moment, Man United don't really have a goalkeeper. Henderson's leaving, De Gea's not there, and Onana's not either. Like, they literally don't have a recognisable goalkeeper at this moment in time. It's pretty important that they do manage to sort this out quickly. And it looks like we're going to get a very fast ending to this transfer, well, not even a saga, transfer story.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think also picking him up for around £45 million is a snip. When you look at the quality of the goalkeeper, it's fairly cheap. To have Mount and him in both for around that 100 million mark, it then gives United time to focus on other areas. And of course, there's the rumours of Amrabat potentially coming to the football club. Again, this is all stemmed from the same Italian press that was adamant about Kim, but was also adamant about Onana. So that's why I say the United fans, don't take it all as gospel like it will 100% happen, but I also don't disregard it completely. I know Amrabat isn't a deal that you've been too familiar with yourself, but that's the kind of player I think United also need to go for as well as a striker. But what do you think's next for the club? Will it be the Hojlund deal? Will they go back in for Kane? Is there another striker on the agenda? Or do you think it will be that second midfield player?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, on Amrabat, we obviously talked about this off air, and I said I don't honestly have too much to say on this, but what I do know is that he's been offered to them by, I think, third party, to be honest, just to see whether there was any interest there from Man United. I don't think they've dismissed the idea of signing Amrabat. I also don't think it's particularly close, and I think, from what I understand, the player might prefer actually going to La Liga. I think he might have offers there. So I think that is probably something that drags on a little bit rather than being anything imminent. Do United need like another midfielder right now? I mean, let's face it, like Casemiro's going to play that role. You've still got Eriksen in there. You've got Mason Mount in midfield now to help out Bruno Fernandes. McTominay and Fred are both still at the club. I don't think both of those players are leaving Man United. I think one of them will leave. I don't think it'll be both. And at the moment, I say it's probably more likely to be Fred. So I wonder if Scott McTominay even ends up leaving Man United at this moment in time. I know there's been fresh interest from abroad for McTominay in the last 24 hours, but I'm not convinced. I think that McTominay has been such a player that is respected by Ten Hag so much for like his work ethic and what he can bring to the team, and he doesn't cause a fuss. Wouldn't surprise me if he hung around while United figure out what they do with that one. a number 9, you can't get around the fact that like there's a gaping hole there. Like the only way around it is to play Marcus Rashford as the number 9 for next season. And do you want to be in that position? That's what Man United basically have to decide now. Now, look, you can obviously get around it. You've got options on the left. You've got Garnacho. You've got Jadon Sancho, who could both go out there. You've got options out wide right. You could even move Bruno out wide right if you wanted to get Mason Mount as the attacking 8, and have Rashford going through the middle as the out-and-out 9. Rashford has spoken to Ten Hag at the back end of last season and told him he's more than happy to become a number 9. He feels much more ready now to become a number 9, Marcus Rashford. And in a way, I think he wants that responsibility at some point at Man United if Ten Hag's ready to give it to him. Now, we see, though, that Rashford is just not clinical. He doesn't seem to be clinical or ruthless enough in that area of the pitch. He seems much better when he's out wide, coming inside. That just seems to be such a major strength of his play that it feels like you're missing something from him when he's a bit more static, I guess. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's that he doesn't have as much movement when he's at that 9. So United aren't close to that. If this drags on, might well be that Marcus Rashford has to play as the 9 when Man United begin the season. But in terms of options, Hojlund is the one that most progress has been made. It's probably the most active of any that I've heard about so far. What would the price point be, and does he genuinely fit what's going to help Man United? I think they're two massive questions that nobody knows the answer to at this stage. The valuation of 80 million for Hojlund won't be met at all. Be surprised if they even went over 45 million for Hojlund. The same point really we're seeing over Onana and Mason Mount. I mean, you're signing those two at 55 million pound, 45 million pound. You're not going to go and spend 70 million pound on Rasmus Hojlund, a player that's barely proved himself so far in Serie A. Great prospects, but not too much more than that. And also doesn't actually open up the same avenues. I was speaking to a coach the other day about Hojlund and what he would bring. And I said, well, Weghorst wasn't like a great goal scorer, but he actually did help them get more out of Marcus Rashford. Maybe that's what Hojlund's there for. He said, but Hojlund doesn't do that. Hojlund won't open up spaces in the same way that Weghorst did. If you look at the way that he plays, doesn't really make those same movements. So that's not something that will come as naturally to him, and could take some work. So you might neither here nor there, because Hojlund's not going to be a 17, 18 goals a year goal scorer in the Premier League in his first season. And if he's also not going to quite be able to open up the same spaces, then is he the right man for Man United right now? Or do they need to punch bigger? Still no takeover, still no potential to go for Harry Kane at this moment in time, which is a shame because they would be straight into that conversation. Like at the moment with Bayern Munich pressing ahead with Harry Kane and all the conversations around it, Man United should be in that conversation. They should be giving him something to think about right now, but it's just not plausible.
Yeah, the Harry. I mean, I've been saying for a while now. I'm hoping in the latter back end of this window or something along those lines, United go back in for him. But that's again just me as a fan with a pipe dream and a hope that is what happens. But I think you're right. Look, Rashford, I think, can score a lot of goals for us again, but I prefer him coming from that left-hand side. That's where I think he's most dangerous. He's okay. He was okay last season when he got moved centrally during games, but that's against kind of tired legs. It's a little different from starting a game as the
that cup final, I just think I keep thinking of the FA Cup final. And if Man United had a proper 9 that day, even Vlahovic, right? Vlahovic is out there and gettable. If you'd have had him for the FA Cup final, I just feel like there was so much more potential to go and win that game. And if suddenly, you were looking at that lineup from Wembley and you're thinking, imagine you'd have had Onana in goal. Imagine you've had the option of Mason Mount breaking out of the midfield and that creativity and just that spark that he's got and the work rate too. And you also add a Vlahovic type figure. That team is completely overhauled in that sense. And also, you look at the other players around them, what you would get out of them. Jadon Sancho just seems to be crying out for somebody to play off too. Like Jadon Sancho, I think, wants a target in there to know what he's going to get, to understand fully the movements that you're going to be getting in there. What's he aiming for? Who's he creating chances for? I feel like if you can get the right fit of striker, you might unlock also something new in Jadon Sancho. He's got one more year to turn this round at Man United. I don't think he'll leave this summer. You've got one more year of Sancho. You've got literally one of the best English talents we've had in the last 10 years coming here. You spent a lot of money on him. You spent ages chasing him. You don't let him go at this point. You're like, right, we've got to give everything to making sure we get the proper version of this guy, because potentially you've got one of the most dangerous creators in the Premier League if you can get there. But in order to get that, you need that number 9.
Mate, I absolutely agree with the need for this number 9. I'm hoping it's what we kind of focus on next and we go and get the right individual. In terms of Harry Kane, there's talk today of a new deal being offered to him. They're stating that he won't sign it during the transfer window. Bayern looking to put a second bid in with Red. I'm not sure if that's been made official yet. What is the latest with his potential exit away from Tottenham?
Look, I mean, he would be crazy to sign a new contract with Tottenham right now. I don't see any reason for Harry Kane to put himself in a position where, once again, he was signing his life away to Tottenham with no idea over what was actually going to happen. Needs to get in the setup again, like have a proper conversation with the manager, like see what his training's like, see what Tottenham's philosophy is going to be into the new season. If he does end up staying there, the season starts well. Maybe Kane does sign his life away. Who knows? But right here and now, why would he do that? He's got Bayern Munich knocking on the door. He knows Man United are on the verge of a takeover. There are going to be prospects opening up elsewhere in Europe, whether it's Barcelona or Real Madrid for a year's time. Who knows? Wouldn't surprise me at all if one of those came in for him. It would be stupid to sign for Tottenham right now, and I don't believe that he will. But also, I mean, I'm obviously skeptical too about him actually making the jump to Bayern. But clearly, like, groundwork has been laid here, and Kane's camp are giving him the heads up to believe that this deal can actually be pulled off. In one sense, I love it, because for Kane to take us all by surprise and step out of his comfort zone, go to a club that are guaranteed to win things, go to a club whereby he can actually challenge to win the Champions League, raises his level and also raises England's levels. So by the time we get to the Euros next summer, if Harry Kane's had a season whereby he's won the cup in Germany, won the league in Germany, and also gone far in the Champions League, that's going to benefit all of us. But more than that, obviously for Harry Kane, it's about proving himself outside of England at some point. And maybe he ends up going abroad to then come back to the Premier League again to get that goals record. It's always been spelled out differently to me in terms of how he would manage this part of his career. A lot of people who have known people close to Kane have told me that they would think his pathway would be to either stay with Tottenham a little longer or go somewhere like Man United, get that goals record under his belt, try and win trophies here. And then at 31, 32, that's when he would look to go abroad and get all the trophies and show that when you look back on his career, well, look, I won Bundesliga, or I won La Liga, whichever way around he decides to go. He could go on a mini world tour if he wants at some point. But you could flip it and say, well, he's 29 going on 30 right now. Maybe he goes abroad for 3 years now and gets all that done while he's guaranteed of being fit, because who knows what state he'll be in 3 years. There's no signs of injuries, but you don't know. And he could prove everybody wrong in that sense. I don't think Kane's that bothered about what the outside world thinks about him. I've never got that impression. He's such a down-to-earth guy. He knows what his job is. He's very head down about things, very family-orientated. So I think that's interesting about him. But yeah, the most interesting thing is going to be if Bayern actually put a reasonable offer on the table, because unless they get close to £100 million, Daniel Levy's not going to entertain it, and the whole thing's a waste of time.
Do you think there's a world where, if, say, Bayern are very close to a deal, 105 million, I'm making the number up here. Do you think if a Man United came in then and said, we'll match the bid or slightly better it, that would work? Or do you think there'd be a premium for him to be sold to a Premier League rival?
For Daniel Levy and Man United, I mean, probably a premium, because he's so against it happening. You know, that's not a made-up narrative. I've heard it from so many different sources that are like, Levy's absolutely set on him not making a transfer from Tottenham to Man United. At the end of his contract, he can't really do much about it. Like, Harry Kane's a free man. He can free will, do whatever he likes. But Levy, some reason, particularly Man United, hates the idea of it happening. So I think he would probably push the price up. But also, like, the window's closing and Man United being able to have that cash available to them to even make it happen. But obviously, the other side of it will be, if Man United do come in to challenge Bayern Munich for his signature, I think that's the point at which Kane has to kick up a fuss and be like, I need to go. I want to go. Like that, they're two unbelievable opportunities for him. And I don't believe that he would be willing to just stay quiet in the background if Man United actually did come to the table.
Though I agree, I've been saying it for a while now. I think that this is, if Kane wants to get out this summer, it's what he has to. It's what he simply has to do. I think he has to push. This here says questions from KJ. Have you guys seen the Greenwood update from Laurie Whitwell? I have. I'm sure you may have seen that this morning as well. It doesn't look like he'll be there this season though. But if Greenwood is going to stay, that could also be in Man United's thoughts in terms of not investing 100 million in a new player up front. If Greenwood is going to, whether people like it or not, it is an asset that's worth a lot of money. And if the club's going to bring him back, it could save the club a hell of a lot of investment.
Honestly, like the Greenwood situation has really cost Man United. They thought they had a player here that was basically going to be worth £100 million and would never have meant that they'd have to be in a situation right now where they're scrambling around for a new number 9. They had him. Like they've had so much belief in what Mason Greenwood was capable of and could achieve that they thought he was their future number 9. So of course, there's always going to be that thing at the back of their mind, which is like, could Mason still do it? And it's really difficult because managing this from a PR point of view, you can't win. There's fans that are crying out for a number 9 and would love to see it be him, but you're also going to get the other side of it. Some from the Man United fan base, the rest of them from the outside world who absolutely don't want this to happen, who will be like, this is absolutely outrageous. And Man United will get pelters for it. They'll get absolute pelters for bringing Mason Greenwood back into the setup whenever it happens. Now, they can come through that moment. Like you have crisis management in terms of PR and you can ride the waves. We've seen it happen before where players have even, been in prison or been through situations and they've gone back into football. They've tried to go into one club and it hasn't worked out. And then they've eventually found a club. They've had to work their way back up the ladder. And it's a very, very tricky phase for any club to manage. But yeah, Mason Greenwood, I'd be amazed if he was involved at Man United in any time in the very near future. But like I say, he's a £100 million footballer in the making. He was when all this went up in the air. And that's a tricky thing for United to overcome. And they've been wondering, obviously, for the whole time whether they'd lost that asset forever.
No, I completely understand. And there is the footballer and the big question is as well, a year of not playing football. Can he even get back? I mean, it's not an injury that he's had, but the mental strain, not playing football for a year, the pressure he'll get from people online, like just go away from the morality of the issue and just look at it from a professional standpoint. I don't even know if it's a good idea in relation to that. The club, I mean, they've been offered some money for him. They've been offered loan deals. Yeah, everyone knows what I want. I don't want him to come back to Manchester United. I really, really don't. But if I'm being honest, it feels like that is what may end up happening. Or at the very least, I don't think the Glazers are going to sanction the sale of him for like 10, 15, 20 million pounds. I just don't think they're ever going to do that.
I don't think so either at that sort of money. I mean, the lad's 21 years old. I mean, you look at some of the players that Man United are being linked with now, say Hojlund, even Kolo Muani, these players. Like, to be honest, like Greenwood's ceiling's higher than those players. Like Greenwood was going to be everything they hoped he would be, with breaking through into the England setup, has played for England at every age level since he was a kid. Been talked up through the academy system for years, even getting to this moment. And obviously it's like all started to fall apart. But what you've got in terms of a natural talent, like that's not going to disappear. Like Mason Greenwood's big strengths were all natural. Like these are things that are not going to go away. He'll still be fit and be able to get as fit as he's ever been. And the great thing that United liked about him was how quickly he can open up space and how quickly he can get away shots and his goal-scoring instincts. And that's built in him at this point. So if and when Greenwood did come back into the scene, I really don't think that match sharpness or fitness and things like that would be too much of a problem for him.
There we go. Viewers, make sure like buttons have been hit. Make sure you're subscribing to the show and you have bell notifications turned on. I wanted to ask you about Chelsea. There's talk now that Brighton are poised to ask for more than 100 million, although there are still a lot of people that are kind of sort of pro-Chelsea media as well, saying that this deal will be around the 80 million mark. But what is the latest in terms of Chelsea's pursuit of Caicedo? And will they have him before the pre-season tour of the USA?
Well, obviously that's the big question at the moment. Chelsea flying in 11 days to America for that tour. And so obviously you need to complete the deal early as possible in order to get him on that flight. Obviously, he can still join up with them like after that date, but they want him to be part of it. Like the big downfall for Chelsea last year was the fact that they fell so far behind during pre-season. You know, the whole fitness aspect of their pre-season was way below par. We'll remember the stories around Tuchel and all the mess leading into the season, and they want to avoid any situations like that. So having him through the door as soon as possible would be ideal. Are they likely to wrap up a deal for Caicedo inside 10 days? I mean, it seems unlikely, but it's not impossible. All it's about is understanding what Brighton are actually going to accept here and making sure they avoid a scenario where there's a back and forth in terms of negotiation. And that's what I understand Chelsea have been doing recently. Rather than going steaming in with the first offer and being knocked back, they want to understand like what ballpark they actually have to go in first of all to even be taken seriously. They don't want to be like mugged off like Arsenal kind of were in the end, because that was a complete waste of time. It rattled Brighton. It didn't get them anywhere. And Chelsea are being very much more careful in any negotiations about being respectful to the club that are selling these players, because they don't want to damage relations for now or for later. So I think that Caicedo at £80 million is true. I think that's exactly the figure that Chelsea would be looking to negotiate around. I do think they will go above £80 million, but not as far as £100 million. That's been pretty clear to me, is that Chelsea are very, very conscious about going above £100 million or even close to it. And they think that Brighton will probably negotiate underneath that amount. Of course, Brighton are going to set their stall out as high as they can. Makes sense too, given the fact that Declan Rice is going for £105 million. But also, you know, Caicedo, 1 year in the Premier League, still young and emerging. Yeah, he's probably not quite at that level, would probably be their argument in terms of like why this fee would be there. Declan Rice also, you're playing for an English premium, a player that's in the England setup, things like that. So yeah, it's an interesting one that is definitely kicking off, and there's not a lot of time to get it done in time for pre-season. But Chelsea are transforming now their transfer strategy. They've got a lot of the exits out the door that needed to be made, and now it's about transforming the squad and getting some experience and some nous into that team. I mean, the midfield's been absolutely shattered at the moment. It's poor. I mean, there's nothing there. You know, Enzo Fernandez holding the fort on his own at the moment. He might have Conor Gallagher next to him, might have a 19-year-old Andre Santos next to him, but there doesn't seem like anything there to hold this team together. So Caicedo has to arrive. They've got to win this battle.
Yeah, they absolutely have to. There's talk about them going for Lavia as well, but you know, they've sold a lot of people now, Chelsea. It is about going out there into the market and landing talent and bolstering this squad. Are they going to do anything else in the striker department? You mentioned Vlahovic already on the show today. I've read a few rumors recently that could be a target for Chelsea. Is that something that's starting to advance and get more detailed, or not at this point?
It is, yeah. So I was speaking to somebody who's close to Juve, and it sounds like this one is expected to heat up pretty soon. So Juve have just had a bit of restructuring in their in terms of the officials at the club working and stuff. And there's a new guy working as sporting director who's been promoted internally. And as part of that, and part of adjusting for the new season, meetings are basically planned for the back end of this week, start of next week, to start getting plans in place for them for next year, but also making sure if any departures are tied up quite quickly. And one of the discussions that I'm told will happen is around Vlahovic with Chelsea. Now, Chelsea touched base on Vlahovic 5 or 6 weeks ago now, it must have been, just to see like what the situation was there. Would he be available? Little things like that. And now they're revisiting it. Since then, they haven't. But now I am hearing for the first time noises that Chelsea just want to feel out that situation again. And if that happens, it becomes a lot more interesting in terms of how Chelsea's team is starting to look for next season. Now, we don't know if Juve definitely sell, but they are likely to sell if an €80 million bid at least comes through the door for him. I don't think that's bad value. I really don't think that's bad value for a player like Dusan Vlahovic. I think he's outstanding. I think there are very few players in this market that are available that you can sign who automatically increase your chances of scoring goals in this division. If you look at Chelsea last season in terms of goal conversion rate, it was one of the worst in the league. In fact, second or third worst in the league. They just couldn't get shots away. I think they scored an average like a goal a game or something. It was so poor. And they need that to improve. The season before that, Chelsea had the fourth best conversion rate in the year. It was a massive drop-off. Affected them hugely. You look at what they've got right now. Brozier, Nicholas Jackson. They've got about 7-8 Premier League goals between them coming into the new season. It's not really enough. It's not enough to guarantee that Chelsea get the lift off that they need under Pochettino. And there's always been that thought, will Chelsea actually pull the trigger here and go and get an elite striker for next season? Yesterday, I was writing a piece for Give Me Sport on like the kind of options that might be out there for Chelsea in this window if they to actually look to do that. And I was going through the list. So I had Vlahovic right at the top of it. Obviously, Osimhen is somebody there that you can't ignore in terms of goal pedigree. He'd be the most likely source to fire Chelsea into title contention if they want to get there within one season. But obviously, you're going to have to pay through the nose to do it. Harry Kane, I think, is a pipe dream for now. Lautaro Martinez is on the table if they want to go down that avenue. Pochettino does like him, but at the moment, I've checked in and there's been no contact so far between Chelsea and Lautaro Martinez. Rasmus Hojlund is actually somebody that Chelsea haven't actually made any progress with it. Obviously, Man United ahead of them right now. And the only other one that is interesting is Ivan Toney. Ivan Toney, somebody that Chelsea have tracked over the course of last season. They're impressed with his goal record. Obviously, he's suspended at the moment and isn't going to be seen until the new year. So I'm not sure that they would need to rush into anything here, and are unlikely to. But Ivan Toney is somebody that they like. So I would, in terms of like, are they going to sign a 9? I'd actually put Ivan Toney probably higher than other people might imagine I would. But you go through it, and Vlahovic right now is probably the most gettable. We know he's been looked into. We know he's available. He's at a reasonable price. He's clinical. He's of a pedigree better than almost anybody else you could get right now. Certainly better than anyone else in that Chelsea squad. And if that call is made at the end of this week, start of next week, and there's positive signs from it, it wouldn't surprise me if Chelsea did look to explore how they could actually get that deal done.
Yeah, I've listened to what you've said in the last few weeks about Chelsea, and I think they're doing great work around buying young players. They're setting this sort of precedent of the future. They're buying, a lot of talent from across Europe. But there's an irony. I know that the famous quote from Alan Hansen, "You can't win anything with kids." The reason that quote was wrong about Man United is that we had a core of Schmeichel, Pallister, Bruce, Cantona, McClare, and that, like, there was a core of senior experienced players that led the class of 92. Chelsea need to add some experience to this team. Not as it's not a dig at the talent they've bought, but you're absolutely right. There needs to be, and look, Vlahovic is not exactly old. He's not exactly 30 years of age. He's in his early mid-20s. But it's just a few players with an extra couple of years experience, international experience, Champions League experience.
Yeah.
Just to help get through the difficult moments. It's hard for young players when they don't have the experience. And Chelsea fans' expectations are massive. And you do need players that can take that upon their shoulders and go and carry you to that next level, surely.
Yeah, Vlahovic still fits the profile of what Chelsea will be looking for. He's still going to have resale value further down the road. Even Lautaro Martinez would have resale value down the road. He's still young enough to be able to have that. So I don't think that's a massive problem. But it's certainly something that's going to be interesting as you go forward. I mean, you compare them to the class of 92 and what Chelsea are doing right now. It doesn't compare. I mean, what Man United did, like you said, not only did they have a core of players already ingrained in that squad that they could introduce those players in and around. Those players had grown up together. They knew each other's game inside out. So Neville, Butt, Beckham, the other Neville, both of them, they all knew each other's game. So that's very different. Chelsea are signing players from every corner of the world. They're signing players from all sorts of different teams. They've been all through different systems. They're coming into a new setup. They're not going to gel like that Man United team did back then. Now, look, this might end up with egg on my face for like criticizing so regularly how Chelsea are building this team. I just don't see how it can work for next season. Like, I'm not saying it can't work long term. It can. But Chelsea tried to be patient under Graham Potter and the methods that he had and said they'd stick by him and stick by him and stick by him. Couldn't do it. They didn't have the patience in the end to see it out. Now, Pochettino obviously has more pedigree than Potter, and you'll have to stick by him now, and you have to give him this season. But like, what will be deemed as okay for Chelsea next season? Because you look at that squad at the moment, and the starting 11 could be very good. There's no doubt. Like, they can get an 11 on the pitch for the first day of next season that looks like a very good 11. Is it likely to, over the course of the season, be able to remain in the conversation to make the top 4 of the Premier League? I'd have a bit more skepticism around that. And I think that once you start to have 1 or 2 players falling out of that lineup, especially the leaders and the experienced players in the team, you start to fall away. I mean, Chelsea haven't got a captain for next season at the moment going forward. They don't have, like, if Azpilicueta's going and you look that Kante's gone, like, the influence that those guys held is huge. Who else is experienced? Lukaku, you're getting rid of him. Aubameyang, getting rid of him. I'm not saying that they should be kept, but I'm just saying in terms of like what they've done in the game, they've experienced things that a lot of players in that squad haven't done. If you're looking for a captain for Chelsea next season, you might be smart giving it to someone like Reece James. 1, it keeps him happy at the club. 2, it takes him to a new level too and gives him a new feeling of responsibility, a new feeling that, I am the future of this club, because Chelsea have lost their identity. Players like Mason Mount leaving is a massive thing. And the fan base, while they might be coming round to the idea of it, he was still somebody that they resonated with. They have very few players left at Chelsea they can actually do that with. And I think that that's why it's important that Chelsea do stick with players like Levi Colwill. Obviously, we talked about the Caicedo deal, and Brighton still hope that they might be able to get Levi Colwill through the door and sign him. Just don't see it. I really don't see that Chelsea are going to entertain selling Levi Colwill that well. I think it's more likely that Levi Colwill is in Chelsea's starting 11 at the start of the new Premier League season than it is that he's joining Brighton anytime soon.
Yeah, identity is really important to a lot of fans, and Levi Colwill, he's very good as well. This is the thing; it doesn't make sense to sell such a young, especially when your whole model is let's buy young kids, let's develop a team for the future. When you have brilliant young talent at your club, to sell them and buy someone else, it doesn't, as you say, it doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. There's a comment here that says Dybala and Nkunku, such an upgrade. I have seen a few reports that Dybala could be on his way to Chelsea this summer. Have you heard anything about that at all?
Yeah. I mean, Dybala's been mentioned like coming into the window. He was mooted by a few people. So he's somebody that Chelsea are aware of, and I don't think there's anything active happening with Dybala as it stands right now. Is he the out-and-out 9 that Chelsea would probably need? I don't think that he is. So, yeah, I haven't got any information on Dybala actually being in the frame for Chelsea right here, right now. But I absolutely won't discount it as somebody they look into, because if they like Lautaro, if they're looking at Vlahovic, then it's quite clear that they do like that market that is out there right now. And look, Serie A is undergoing a bit of an exodus right now. There's big concerns in Italy about the fact that a lot of their top stars are looking to leave the league. You've obviously seen Tonali join Newcastle. That wasn't expected, really. And especially a club he'd grown up supporting, he's gone. And that could really have a knock-on effect. And if they get to a situation by the end of this summer where all the big names are being linked with transfers and more of them start going, then you start to get to a situation too where you wonder if the likes of Osimhen and Kvaradona and these guys at Napoli also look to leave. Kim's already gone. There's going to be more question marks around players leaving at Juventus, not just Vlahovic, but Chiesa too. So there's a lot to sort out there.
Yeah, lots going on at Chelsea, no doubt about it. Any more questions, viewers, make sure you send that in to us. A few people asking, could Vlahovic go to Arsenal? I mean, we know Arsenal have done some brilliant business, Edu and the like, getting in Rice, Kai Havertz and Timber. Could Vlahovic be an option for Arsenal? A lot of their fans think they need another number 9.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand the thought process. At the moment, there's no signs of Arsenal going for a number 9. Obviously, they have been in for Vlahovic before, so we know that the interest is there. So straight away, that's a step up on the ladder, and you know that there's got to be some level of interest in Vlahovic. At 80 million euros, it's not a fee that's impossible to get to. Definitely, it would have a lot to do with what would Juve be willing to do around structuring. Like if Juve want cash quickly, then Arsenal probably aren't going to be able to do it because they don't have great cash flow at the moment. They're not able to offer a heavy load up front. So that's going to be difficult. You then got to look at the philosophy of Mikel Arteta's team build and what he's actually trying to achieve here, because he's obviously copied the Man City model in many ways. And one of those is that he hasn't really got an out-and-out goal scorer, as you would imagine it might have been. Gabby Jesus plays a very particular role in that setup. They've got backup options there already within the club. And are they going to go and sign a proper number 9? There's been no noises of it, but Man City did do it. So if Arteta actually wants to get to doing what Man City did, well, Man City had this model where they were like, we don't need a number 9. We'll win the league without it. And fair enough. Like they did actually do that. But how did they improve that team? They went and signed the best number 9 in the world. So if Arsenal want to improve their team, what do? They go and sign one of the best number 9s in the world, which could end up being Dusan Vlahovic. And we know that there's interest in there. So no, there's not interest. No, there's nothing active on Arsenal pursuing Vlahovic right now. But like I said earlier in the show, Juventus are beginning to take calls from the end of this week on players potentially leaving the club. And if those calls are going to happen, then they need to be happening within the next week because Juve want to know exactly where they stand ahead of next season. And Arsenal have that window to get involved in those discussions if they want to.
Absolutely. And with Arsenal, we obviously know the deals that have come in. There's still talk of Lavia. But are any more incomings at Arsenal now more dependent on people leaving as opposed to just more additions? So is Lavia going to happen if Partey leaves? Or could that be a deal they pursue if he stays? There's still talk every day at the moment in Spain of Tchouaméni, but Lavia seems far more likely. What's your understanding of the next pieces of activity at Arsenal?
Yeah, I mean, the way that it was described to me was we should expect kind of a short pause now. Once these 3 guys are unveiled at Arsenal, just be braced for that there might be no incoming movement for a short period while they just address the actual squad that they've now got and get rid of some of the players within that so that 1, they can open up funds, 2, they know exactly where they have to build the squad in terms of being ready for the Premier League season. So, yeah, there are positions, particularly in midfield, like you say, Partey, like what will happen there. There's also a situation at the back. Gabriel has a few glances in his direction, particularly PSG have liked Gabriel. I'm not saying he's particularly likely to go, but it's not impossible that PSG make an offer for him. If that was to happen, Arsenal would have to move to sign a new centre-back. Not likely, but as I say, it could happen. And Arsenal need to assess situations like that. They've also been linked with Cancelo. Now, the situation they're in right now, they've got Zinchenko and they've now bringing in Yuri and Timber, who can play right-sided centre-back, but he also can play right-back. So again, like people are looking at that signing, and you've kind of now got on the other side of the defence another Zinchenko. So you've got Timber, who's very versatile, can even move into midfield, like Zinchenko has been known to do at times. So I'm not 100% sure Cancelo ends up becoming a pursuit at this stage. Man City want it to become one because Man City want to get rid of Cancelo. There aren't many clubs out there that are able to take him on the sort of money he's going to want and also the fee that Man City would like him for him. So that's something to consider. So we'll have to see what happens defensively. And then the big one at the back end of this window, I think, is can they get in the other attacker? I'm not talking of Vlahovic. I'm talking a wide attacker. That's the position that is still kind of discussed. When I speak to contacts around Arsenal, and you just try and you're always trying to feel out like what might be next, what might be next. It's the wide attacker that creates like the most intrigue, I guess is probably the right word, because there's no certainty that they do it, but it could be exciting for August if Arsenal are in the position where they've got the foundations of their team are set, they're happy with everything, and they're like, right, let's just sprinkle one more little bit of magic over this squad. Let's get in another attacker. And who is on the market right now? It's not going to be Kylian Mbappe. I know Arsenal fans have been hoping for news over Kylian Mbappe, and at times Twitter's got a little bit wild over the idea that they might be able to get in an Mbappe. that one is not going to happen. But there's potential that they do get somebody else through the door in that position. So I think that's probably the area to look out for most.
There's been a few names linked to them recently. Diaby from Leverkusen, I think. Obviously, there's Frimpong, who's the right back that's been linked to them as well. There are a few names. Have you heard much about either of those two specifically?
No, Frimpong's been a bit quiet, so I haven't heard anything about that. Diaby, amazingly, still looking for a club. He's been linked with everyone since January and not actually tied anything off. So definitely is somebody that has been of interest to Arsenal. So I wouldn't rule it out, especially if this window wears on and he's looking for a club. So yeah, Moussa Diaby is somebody that Arsenal do like. But again, that would be for the second phase of this window. Like, the focus has been so heavily on getting these first three guys through the door that there is no certainty over who they go for in that position yet. So let's wait until the mini clear out starts to take place, the tidy up, I should say, of the Arsenal squad takes place. And then we'll see, once that second phase is ready to be activated, if Arsenal can go for those players in the wide areas. The Saka thing, like, Saka does need some level of competition and rotation. He can't go through an entire season again just being turned out week after week for 90 minutes. He did, and for whatever reason, Saka didn't hit the same levels for those peak games that they needed towards the end of the season. And if that was tiredness, it was just a loss of form, we don't know. But it's no coincidence, really, that he would fall away after being turned out week after week for 90 minutes. And obviously, Arsenal now got Champions League football to come to the equation too. So it does make sense that I can see them going for someone who's capable of playing on that right side of the attack.
There we go. A super chat for you here, Dean. Says, Dean, how do you feel that Fulham are London's first FC? Are you the oldest club in London? Is that true?
We're the oldest club in London. Yeah. There's a lot of people seem to dispute this. I'm not why. I'm sure it's a historical fact. We are the oldest club in London. We used to sing we're the oldest club in London and we're going to Wembley, but that was just for the Championship playoff final, so it wasn't too much to gloat about. But it's we are. It's interesting to see how Fulham's bill goes. I mean, obviously there's been a lot of panic over Marco Silva. He was linked with the Al Hilal job. Luckily, he didn't take the money. They threw huge money at him. He didn't go. Now I'm waiting for Marco Silva to sign his new contract at Fulham so that we can have some security going into next season. I'll be honest, as a Fulham fan, I'll be happy if we just got the squad that we had from last season going into the new one, because the threat around Palhinha is definitely real from West Ham. I just hope and I think that he'll end up staying with us rather than go to West Ham. West Ham's obviously one that's going to get interest in the next few days. They're going for Dennis Zakaria, looking at a loan with a view to an option to sign him further down the line. But they're also looking at Palhinha as a signing that would happen alongside him. Harvey Barnes one as well that West Ham looking at right now. At the moment, Newcastle looking like being their main competitors, but Newcastle being surprisingly slow at stepping out of the shadows again for their second player of his transfer window. Obviously, Tonali was one that caught us by surprise. We didn't think they would go there, basically, for that first signing of the season. That wasn't on the cards coming into the transfer window, but it was a fantastic signing. And now it's going to be interesting to see exactly where Newcastle decide to put the rest of their money. One thing that's happened, I know there's been a bit of concern from a few Newcastle fans thinking, like, why have we kind of stalled at this point? Like, we're supposed to be the richest club in the world. Why are we not bringing in more players? They've got a load of players, basically, that need to be moved on. And whereas Chelsea had that bulk of players that they will manage to get out to Saudi Arabia really quickly, ironically, Newcastle haven't been able to find clubs for their players, despite the fact that they own half these Saudi Arabian clubs. But ultimately, the players that they're looking to offload aren't of the same level as the ones that have been joining Chelsea. So, like, when I'm talking about like players that move on, you're looking at like Ritchie, Fraser, Manquillo. Like, they're not really of the same level as the players that we've been seeing moving from Chelsea to Saudi Arabia. So that's been part of their problem.
Absolutely agree. There's a comment here that says, any clubs interested in Mitoma?
They won't be selling Mitoma. Like, there's no way they're going to let Mitoma go. So important that they keep some identity from last season, Brighton. I've actually felt like going back to the end of last season, we had discussions in our podcast, Ranks FC, about, which Brighton players would actually be most replaceable. And we came out with the idea that actually Mitoma would be the most replaceable because there are players that can do what he does. If you spend enough money, you can find somebody like that. But if they're losing already McAllister and Caicedo, you can't also lose Mitoma because suddenly the whole thing that you built starts to fall apart. And
and Colwill's probably not coming back. So that would be four of their main players gone.
Yeah, exactly. So Mitoma, definitely somebody that they'll look to start the season with. The new season of Fantasy Premier League has actually just been launched as well. Mitoma, really good value in that game, by the way. I think 6.5 million Mitoma. So if you're into FPL, Brighton have got a nice start to next season. They've got, their first 6 games looks like they could get off to a decent start. And Mitoma, one of the best value players, it looks on FPL at the moment. So if you're interested, get hold of him because he will not be leaving Brighton.
There we go. Dean, listen, always a pleasure to speak to you, my friend. It really is. Viewers, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, turn on the bell notification before you go. We're back later at 6 p.m. for the Top 6 show. But until next time, everybody, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And I'll see you all again very, very soon. Thank you.